So with the new season underway, if you really want to achieve your desired rank for this year, then the best way for you to get there the fastest is by locking down a few champions that you stick to, or in other words, main. Maining a champion means that it's going to be the pick that you play in the majority of your games. One tricking can get boring after a while, and even though it's the most optimal way to climb, maining a few champs can be a lot more enjoyable. So if you can limit yourself to 3 main champions, then you can find a pretty good balance between not getting burnt out on one champ, but also having the potential to reach champion mastery. Most of the champions we feature in this video are going to require a more significant amount of mastery in order to play them to their potential, and this is why we are releasing this video at the very start of the season, so that you have a ton of time to put into these champs if you choose to main them. So we'll be covering 3 champions for every single role that are very powerful for Season 16 and have a lot of solo carry power once mastered. And if you guys want to stay ahead of the meta for Season 16, then SkillCapped is the place to be. We've got a new course for this year that our challenger players will be working on, and it revolves around keeping you up to date with all the new meta trends. As soon as we discover something new, you can expect a video to go live within that course, breaking down exactly what we found. Whether it be a new build, strategy, or rune setup, SkillCapped members will be the first to know with access to this course. On top of this, we've got our weekly commentaries where our challenger experts walk you through how to carry out of the exact rank you're stuck in. We always upload 10 brand new commentaries each week focused on covering the best champions in meta. And then of course, you'll get access to our entire catalog of premium courses as you'll be mastering wave control, vision, trading, and macro in no time. And the best part of it all is that we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee. Climb at least 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped or get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the top right corner of the screen or in the description below to get ahead of everyone else for Season 16. So a champion who's become so much more enjoyable for this year and a really rewarding champion to main is Gangplank. Gangplank is now back to building full crit for Season 16, and there are very few things in League that are more satisfying than landing a multi-man barrel combo in a team fight that crits for a mass amount of AoE damage. This is definitely easier said than done though, as consistently hitting your barrel combos is what gives Gangplank a higher skill ceiling than most top laners. Since Gangplank is one of the best scaling top lane champions in the game, it makes learning your matchups and being able to get ahead in lane that much more important. If you can get to the point where you're able to solo kill your lane opponent on a regular basis, then the sky is the limit. And since top lane champions gain more experience this season through their role quest, it's phenomenal for Gangplank because of the fact he scales so well. You can kind of do a little bit of everything on Gangplank as well, as even though his team fight is where he really thrives, his ability to side lane and win through a split push is completely viable too. So you definitely may struggle a bit as you first pick up Gangplank, but don't let that deter you from chugging along, as he's one of the most rewarding, if not the most rewarding top laner once mastered. One top lane champion who's always going to be a great champion to main, who's in a really powerful spot to start Season 16, is Riven. If you want to play a champion who has the ability to outplay opponents in the 1v1, then there are few better options than Riven. Riven is one of those champs to where even if she's slightly behind her opponent, it often doesn't matter that much as long as you're mastered at the champ. The mobility in Riven's kit allows her to outplay so many different situations, as dodging a key skill shot or canceling an ability with her W stun can allow you to win fights that most champs wouldn't stand a chance in winning. Riven is one of the most devastating top lane champs in the game if given a lead because of the fact she has so much mobility. Riven's ability to chase an opponent down the long lane is incredible, and her dive threat is top tier as well, so if you get ahead of your opponent, then extending that lead is so easy when you're mastered the champion. Truly understanding your limits with Riven as you reach later game situations is probably one of the most difficult things to grasp. Riven can quite literally win 1v3 situations when she's ahead, but at the same time, you don't want to ape into a fight and just throw your lead if you're ahead. So being able to walk that fine line and knowing when you can be hyper aggro and when you've got to chill back a bit is something that will take you a while to learn, but once you've got it down, the pick becomes unstoppable. A top lane champion who always seems to be in a strong spot no matter what, and who's become even better for Season 16 is Kayle. So Kayle is a great top lane champion to main for a few different reasons. First off, this season's changes have been amazing for her because access to additional experience through completing the top lane quest means level 16 Kayle is going to be a thing in a lot more of your games. Level 16 is where Kayle really comes online because she unlocks bonus range and permanently gains the full effects of Zealous, which give her 30% attack speed and 10% movement speed. So even though the Season 16 quest edition has made it easier to reach level 16, mastering the champions is still very rewarding to ensure that you're getting there in the majority of games. Knowing how to play the laning phase out on Kayle and learning your matchups is going to be the most important part of mastering her. Mechanically speaking, Kayle isn't all that difficult, as most of your DPS comes from auto attacking, so matchup mastery is what's really important to get the most out of her. And this just comes with spamming a ton of games, because in some matchups, you can actually beat the opponent straight up at level 1, whereas in other lanes, you have to be more reserved, so learning your laning limits on Kayle doesn't come easy. For such a strong scaler like Kayle, if you can get to a point where you're consistently coming out of lane with a CS advantage, then that's where things get really silly, as a Kayle who's ahead in lane is set up to completely take over. A jungler we're really confident in recommending as a champion champion you'll get a ton of value out of maining is Fiddlesticks. Fiddle is one of those junglers who literally always remains in a powerful spot for solo queue regardless of the meta or season. Fiddle is always up above a 51% win rate, but since his play rate never gets too high, Riot is so much less likely to ever nerf him or make any changes. All the way from bronze to master tier, Fiddle's win rate does not dip below 50%, so he's the perfect champ to spam for your rank climb. One of the core reasons to why Fiddle is so powerful for solo queue is because of the unique gank paths he can take, along with the incredible teamfight prowess he has. Your early game plan with Fiddle is pretty simple: hard farm and reach level 6 as quick as you can. Once you get 6, that is where everything opens up for the champ, because with his R, he can look for tower dives or ganks from in behind walls that few other junglers have the ability to look for. Your counter ganks are absolutely insane with Fiddle too, so if you suspect the enemy jungler is going to try and gank bot, you can just chill out in the mid lane brush and get an easy 3-man R if the enemies try to engage on your team. Because of how impactful Fiddlestick's ultimate can be, he's one of the few champs that can consistently win outnumbered fights if he's ahead, so you get rewarded a ton for being proficient on Fiddle. For our second jungle selection, if you're someone who enjoys a more skirmish style jungler who can win through sheer 1v1 domination, then Kha'Zix is a great pickup. Ka is an assassin jungler who thrives in his ability to isolate squishy targets and burst them out in an instant. His Q quite literally deals more damage if he uses it on an enemy who is at least 425 units away from another teammate, so his main strength is catching off those targets who are split from their team. From a mechanical standpoint, you're not going to have a very difficult time mastering Kha'Zix, but as with any assassin, it's really the decision making and how you choose to approach fights that puts you on another level. Flanking, positioning in Fog of War, and just being in the right spot at the right time are all really important concepts to master in order to get the most out of Kha'Zix. For example, if Dragon Soul is spawning in the next minute, then you shouldn't be on the top side of the map 1 minute before it spawns. Controlling vision on the side of the map where the next objective is spawning at least 1 minute before it spawns, and then picking off squishy targets that try to enter late for vision is the most basic way to find great success on a jungler like Kha'Zix. One of the most impactful junglers in the entire game when in the hands of a mastered player is Talon. Talon jungle is such a unique pick because he gets to do things that a lot of other junglers can't. Talon's E allows him to traverse over walls, so his ability to invade and gank is top tier. Plays that may be high risk for most junglers end up being very low risk for Talon, and this just allows you to run away with games if you have a solid understanding of the champion. For example, many junglers would be going on a suicide mission if they invaded top side, while both their mid laner and top laner are shoved under tower. Since Talon can escape by jumping over walls, he doesn't actually have to worry nearly as much as to whether or not his lanes have priority when deciding what to do. So this means you have so many more windows of opportunity throughout the early game and are much less reliant on your teammates to impact games. Now, this does mean that if you play Talon, then you can't really use the excuse of your teammates being bad for not being able to make plays early on, so that is one downside. Jokes aside, if you want a jungler who has some of the most reliable early game impact, then maining Talon for Season 16 is a great idea. Moving on to our mid lane selections now. First up is a champion who's incredibly rewarding to main for Season 16, being Kassadin. So with the removal of Otacon and with the introduction of turret plates on tier 2 and inhibitor turrets, it's made a champion like Kassadin who wants to play through the side lane way more powerful. Cass was not someone who wanted to group up at 20 minutes and take a clown fiesta fight at Otacon to coin flip the game. Cass is a champion who's way better suited with a bit of a slower paced game where he can sit in a side lane, collect his farm, and scale into at least his level 11 where he has 2 points in R. Obviously, the level 16 spike is the massive one for Cass, but even just having level 11 is a very good spike in itself as well. So prior to getting your level 11, you really want to focus on collecting as much experience as possible. If you're someone who enjoys winning through smart macro plays instead of outplaying in 1v1 scenarios, then Cass is the champion for you. Don't get us wrong, you can absolutely win 1v1s with Cass, and he even has the ability to 1v3 if he gets ahead and has his level 16, but your decision making in the mid game is what really differentiates a good Cass player from a great one. Another mid lane champion who fits in perfectly for the way Season 16 has changed the game is Irelia. Irelia is one of those champs who, if given an inch, can take a mile, and this makes her phenomenal to main. What we mean by this is Irelia is a champion who spikes really hard off early game items. Even just completing your Vamp Scepter and getting the lifesteal for early on in lane can make certain matchups extremely favorable for you. Blade of the Ruined King spike is the massive one though, and if you can get to this item before the enemy mid has their item complete, you will roll them in the 1v1. So this means that learning how to play the early lane, understanding your matchups, and being able to consistently out CS your opponent is so much more rewarding with Irelia than most other mids. But of course, doing all this takes a ton of time, and you can't just learn matchups without playing the game yourself, so it makes maining Irelia a must if you want to be able to reach her full carry potential. With Blade of the Ruined King and Hullbreaker completed, that's where you can flip a game in an instant with 1 kill while side laning. Hullbreaker providing that bonus damage to towers is amazing for this season because of the fact there's so much more plating gold to collect. The dream scenario for Irelia in the mid game is that you are splitting down bot, get a kill, and take the enemy's inner turret. You then reset, head up top lane, get another kill, which leads to another turret, and suddenly you've just had over a 2,000 gold swing in the matter of 3 minutes. Playing in the side lane can reap massive massive rewards for this season, so maining Aurelia and really exploiting that is a great strategy. And to round out the top 3 for mid lane, it's going to be a really strong solo carry once mastered, being Uxin. So Uxin is definitely not one of those champs you can pick up right away and expect to win immediately. The skill floor and skill ceiling of Uxin is higher than most mid laners, and this is why choosing to main him at the start of the season is a really good idea, because you've got a lot of time to get good before the season ends. It's Uxin's E that gives him an incredibly high skill ceiling, as being able to use the spell to its limits is super difficult. Knowing which walls to use it on, how to cancel the spell at the right moment, or where to place your E on the wall for maximum distance are all factors that are really hard to get right when you've got to make split-second decisions. Something that's really underrated about Uxin for Season 16 is the fact that his invis from W allows him to run through the river without getting spotted by Phaelite wards. This just makes his early game roam plays so much more reliable than other mids, because the enemy will be lulled into a false sense of security with their Phaelite ward down, and you'll just show up in their lane for some easy kills. Getting top or bot ahead is super rewarding for this season too, because of the fact that their quests offer up a lot of snowball power, so roaming in general is buffed for Season 16. Uxin himself is an absolute menace with the lead as well, because of the fact that he has stealth from W and the long range gap close from E. So picking enemies off in the side lane is about as free as it's going to get on Uxin because of these two factors. An ADC who was great to main all throughout last season and who should remain really solid for this year too is Jinx. Jinx always seems to be left in a powerful state for solo queue, and on top of this, she's rarely ever banned, so it makes her one of the best ADCs to main. There are few ADCs who have as much teamfight potential as Jinx because of the immense power her passive provides. The ramping DPS potential with each passive proc is incredible, and it makes the champ really rewarding if you can position well and contribute towards takedown. It's really your ability to position and knowing your limits when fighting depending on the enemy composition that's really going to take your Jinx to the next level. Correct swapping between Gatling gun and Fishbones is also something that can be more difficult to grasp at first, but is a really cool mechanic to help maximize DPS. All in all, if you want to main a hyper-scaling ADC who has incredible teamfight impact, then choosing Jinx is a no-brainer. An ADC that you cannot go wrong with maining for Season 16 is Nilah. Since Nilah is a more niche ADC that doesn't get a ton of attention, she's always left in a more powerful state for solo queue. The reason Nilah isn't played as much is because she's an ADC who has a completely different playstyle than most other ADCs. The majority of ADCs want to sit back in fights and choose the right moments to weave in autos, but Nilah is the opposite in the sense that she thrives when diving headfirst into the enemy team. For Nilah to be most effective, she wants to be in melee range, CCing the enemy with her R while blocking a ton of incoming damage with her W. So if you're a player who likes to make things happen on your own and don't like the fact that most ADCs need to rely on their team to go in first, then you should highly consider maining Nilah. At the very least, playing a bunch of Nilah so that you have a general idea of how to play her and then pulling her out into specific enemy comps can suit you incredibly well. Nilah's W hard counters auto attack reliant champions because when activated, she dodges all basic attacks for 2.25 seconds. In a later game situation, this 2.25 seconds is enough for you to 100-0 a squishy champion without them even being able to deal a tick of damage back. A common situation where you'll find good value out of Nilah is when the enemy team locks Yasuo or Yone, because when they try to dive on you in fights, you can completely counter their damage by popping W. And then for our third and final ADC recommendation that you should main for Season 16, we've got Twitch. So kind of like Nilah, Twitch has elements to his kit that allow him to make plays that no other ADCs can make. The stealth mechanic from Twitch Q creates unparalleled pick potential and the ability to completely take control of a game on your own. It's all about being in the right spot at the right time with Twitch, because if that opportunity arises where the enemy squishy champion is pushed up alone too far in lane, then he's the best ADC at punishing that with his assassin-like stealth. Just being able to create your own opportunities is something that makes Twitch really rewarding to main. He's the only ADC in the game to where as soon as you disappear from vision, the entire enemy team has to play more reserved or grouped up together, or else you'll be picking up free kills left, right, and center. And when it comes down to team fighting, the skill expression is endless. Choosing the correct time to pop out of stealth, choosing whether you want to try and flank from the side or sit in behind your team, and just possessing the ability to be creative with how you approach fights makes Twitch a completely unique character in comparison to other ADCs. So if you put the time into getting really good at Twitch and can exploit what his kit has to offer, then you'll be speed running to high elo in no time. Looking at the support role now, if there's one champion who's always going to be worth maining for solo queue, it's Thresh. Thresh is always one of the more balanced supports in solo queue, hovering around a 50% win rate, but this is actually really good if you're looking to main him because you never have to worry about him dropping into an overly weak state. It's the playmaking potential that Thresh has to offer, which makes him a very strong champ in the right hands. Once you get enough games on Thresh and understand his limits, the carry power is better than the majority of supports. This is because you can impact games in so many different ways, whether it be finding that game-winning hook on the enemy carry or saving your own carry from an enemy assassin by tossing out a clutch lantern. The skill ceiling of Thresh is limitless, as even after thousands of games, you'll always be able to look back at your recent game and ponder as to how you could have played a situation more optimally. Because of this, it's hard to get bored on Thresh, so if you decide to choose him as one of your main champions, then we doubt you'll be disappointed. So if you want a champion champion where your mechanics and decision making directly translate into climbing and carrying from the support role, then Thresh is your answer. One of the most broken enchanters in the game when in the hands of a mastered player, which makes her perfect to main, is Nami. We really like Nami on this list because of the fact that she has not been rated lower than S tier on our tier list for the past year. Similar to Thresh, Nami always stays in a strong spot for solo queue, which is really important if you're choosing a main. The worst thing that could happen is you choose a champion to main, spam them for a few weeks, and then Riot guts them in the next patch. But with Nami, we're 99% certain that isn't going to happen. You can reach a pretty good baseline level of success on Nami without even spending too much time, but once you master her, then she becomes an elite solo queue pick. It's not hard to toss your E on your carries or heal them with W, but landing your Q consistently is what really differentiates an average Nami from a Nami main. Having the poise to hold on to the spell and using it at the correct moments is not easy to grasp at first, but once you can limit the amount of wasted Qs, then the champ will seem unfair. Not only will you be providing your ADC with a mass amount of DPS by using your E and building Mandate, but you'll be able to set up plays for them as well by hitting R and landing Q, so you can impact games in many different ways. Nami is the complete package in terms of a solo queue enchanter, so if you want to main an enchanter for Season 16, she is our #1 pick. And then rounding out the top 3 is one of the most powerful supports in the game when in the hands of a main, being Blitzcrank. Blitz is one of the more high-risk, high-reward champions, so by maining him, what you will be able to do is lower that risk and increase the reward. A lot of Blitz's power comes from landing a hook, but it's what you do leading up to that hook that is the most important. You want to make landing your hook as easy as possible, so whether that means chaining the spell with one of your teammates' CC spells, running right up to the enemy to hit them with your E first, or waiting for the enemy to be forced to walk into a choke point, there's a lot that goes into playing an optimal Blitz. Getting to the point where you know how to approach fights most optimally is what's going to take the most amount of time to learn with Blitz. Once you can get your hook hit rate up, there's no other support in the game who offers as much instant impact as Blitzcrank. Whether you're ahead or behind, that one hook can completely shift the momentum of the game, so it's completely worth it to main Blitz for this factor alone. In general, just improving your macro knowledge is really going to make your Blitz so much better too, because vision control is so key to succeed with him. If you can control vision around an objective before it spawns and force the enemy team to face check into you, then that's when Blitz is at his best. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So there you have it everyone, those are 3 champions for every single role that are well worth it to main for Season 16. Thank you all so much for watching, we'll see you in the next one.